Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the first session of Women at Work in 2021. We are really happy to host three women working in the higher education sector today. So before we start, let me introduce myself. I am Ashil Ahmed and my colleague Marvin from Al Qasmi Foundation, and we are really excited to host the webinar today. So just before we start, I want to remind the audience about a couple of housekeeping items regarding the Q&A. So if you have any questions for our speakers, feel free to drop your question in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And if you want to view more than one speaker at one time, you can just click on the gallery view at the top right of your screen.
And Aisha already mentioned our amazing speakers, or at least we spoke about them, but let us introduce them. So first, there is Dr. Ahoud Alasfour, who is a professor at the Public Authority for Applied Education and Training in Kuwait, and also the current president of the Gulf Comparative Education Society, and also in addition, among other things, a managing editor of the Gulf Education and Social Policy Review. Welcome, Ahoud.
Thank you, Marvin, and thank you, Aisha. Thank you for the invitation. Looking forward for your questions.
Thank you so much.
Not revealing so much personal information.
Fair enough. But thank you for joining and taking the time. And then, also go ahead.
Most welcome.
Thank you very much. And then next we have Dr. Priti Verma, who is Associate Dean and Assistant Professor at the Higher Colleges of Technology here in the UAE. Welcome, Priti. Nice to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And it's indeed a pleasure to be called at this platform and share the journey. I hope I'll be able to inspire some young girls and in the country and in the region probably. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you so much.
You.
Thanks for joining and sharing your experience. And then last, we also have Dr. Emily Winchip, who is Assistant Professor at Zayed University in Abu Dhabi. Welcome, Emily. Nice to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining. All right. And without further ado, I would say we start with a couple of questions that we have prepared. And then, as Aisha already explained, we will open it to the audience. So please feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A box. The first question that we want to ask is actually, what inspired you to pursue a career in higher education? And whoever wants to start, maybe Ahoud?
Okay, started with me, Marvin. I don't know. It's fate, I think. Wasn't planned in that way. Something that you don't know about me, my starts or beginning in studying my bachelor, my higher education myself, I started in studying pharmacology, completely away from education for 3 years before I shifted to mathematics education. Then after completing that and being a teacher for 4 years at primary school, then I thought of continuing my studies in the higher education and comparative education, specifically in Australia. Then it was a career job, a path that has been, I think it's a fate for me. It wasn't planned, only until I've been transferred to studying higher education or mathematics education, sorry. Then I thought I had to continue to add something for teacher education instead of spending my time as a teacher after finding or discovering lots of challenges and problems that we have in our education system. So I thought if I could add any change or do something, it's better to continue my education and add something to higher education as teaching teachers in the college where I'm teaching now.
Interesting. Thank you so much for sharing. Do you also want to share about your journey, Priti?
Yes, sure. I was born into a family of academicians, I would say. My father was a professor in genetics, College of Basic Sciences. Both my mom's father and my grandfather from my father's side, they were also teachers in school. There was a lot of emphasis on education and higher education in our family. I was born in the university hospital. I would see the my father's PhD students coming to the house in the evening to discuss their research and discussing the current literature, I would say. So I had seen his life. I was really inspired by how he was making a change in the society, in the country, and helping and supporting the students. So I think I would say that was an inspiration. Yeah, so, but I knew it from, I would say towards the end of my graduate program, I knew I want to be in higher education. So it was quite planned, I would say.
Interesting, exciting. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
And now, of course, Emily, we would also be delighted if you would share your journey with us, if you want to.
Sure. I have a similar feeling to Ahoud, that it sort of just happened by accident. It wasn't necessarily my plan, but I'm also thinking as a very young child, my mother went back to school and did higher education when I was about 5 or 6 years old. And I have a very distinct memory of sitting under the desks when she was going to classes, because she would bring me along. And so I did university the first time at a very, very young age. And I think that was a big influence in me saying, this is a very viable career option. Why not go back to school when you have a child? Why not go back to school when you're older? Whereas I think some people feel like age or having children is a barrier. It felt very natural, but also just coincidental and accidental.
Fair enough. Thanks so much for sharing. That is amazing.
Thank you for sharing your inspiring journeys. So what do you know now that you wish you tell your younger self? So I'm going to start with Priti, maybe.
Yeah. So I knew what is expected in this career. I knew I was going with my father to libraries and work on weekends, and I would take my drawing book, or I would take my mathematics book while he was doing his research, looking at the journals. But I did not know that balancing, the other responsibilities with this career would be difficult. So that's always very challenging, how to balance your career and your other responsibilities as a mother, as a brother, sister, or a daughter. So that's challenging. And in higher education, you are always, I would say, the work never ends. So you start one research, then the next one comes up, and your teaching part always keeps on going. And I think as you go up higher in your career, the expectations increases, the work increases, and the responsibility increases as well. So yeah.
I agree totally. What about you, Emily?
I think I wish I would have known at a younger age that there is not a single path to follow, right? That even when you think out what your life is going to be, or you make whatever your next plan is, that even that has many branches, and there are lots of choices along the way as to where it goes. That even if you do know what you want to be when you grow up, it's still you'll get there in kind of a roundabout way, or opportunities will come to you that you wouldn't have expected, that take you in different places, but you'll end up in a good place, even if it's a little bit different, or the path was more circuitous than you expected.
Thank you, Emily. How about you, Ahoud?
I think my case, I wish that I would know how important is reading generally, because I realized that reading is very important late in my life, because I'm not that kind of person who reads a lot except school textbooks, for example. But if I started this habit early in my life, I think it would add a lot to my perspectives right now, to my achievement in this stage.
Interesting. Good. Because I would really be interested in, I mean, speaking of reading, you need to do a lot of reading and researching and writing to get to where you are. So you're all very accomplished scholars. So we would really like to also hear about how you would define success for yourself. And do you feel like you've reached the pinnacle already, or where's next? And yeah, whoever wants to start.
Success, since I can start if you allow me. Success, I think, I view it if you are doing the thing that you passionate about, something, the thing that you like, not the thing that people expecting you to do. So if you're happy to do whatever you are doing, that's mean the success to me. Okay. Never that is what people expect you to do.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for sharing. What about the others?
So maybe I can take the next turn. Success for me, I think, is to reach my highest potential. And as I am on this path in higher education, I'm kind of, finding, oh, I can be good in that. I can be good in administration. I can also help. So I am realizing what potential I have while I'm on this path. And I know this, I have not reached my highest potential. So for me, that is success, nothing else.
Okay, interesting. Thanks.
I feel like I'll give the counterpoint. I just had a conversation with a friend of mine who is working on her PhD. And my biggest advice was to her to celebrate even the smallest accomplishment, because when you're on that journey, it's easy to look at it and say, well, I haven't reached my potential yet. I'm not successful yet. I haven't finished the thing, or I can do better work. And I think that it's really easy to get caught up in that and never really feel successful. So I think that even if you're on that journey toward the things that you want, even if you haven't reached them yet, I think we should call that success, and I think we don't always call it success.
Okay. Interesting to hear those different perspectives. Thank you so much for sharing.
So being a woman, how being a woman affected your career path?
I guess anyone who wants to start.
Yeah.
Should I start on that one? I feel like everyone else take the lead. I guess for me, it's that, being a mother in particular doesn't stop when you start to have an academic career. And I was just thinking back to when I was doing my master's degree, and I would put my son to bed at night, and then every night I would just work for 2 or 3 hours on the work. And I had to really be very dedicated in always doing exactly that schedule, because if I didn't get the things done at night, then it wouldn't happen. And I think some people, I wouldn't say that fathers never have that experience. I think a lot of fathers do that same thing. But I think as a mother, there is sort of that expectation that you're going to put your child to bed every night, and you're going to wake up with your child every morning, and that you're going to always be available to them during the day. And as my child has grown older, it's gotten so much easier, where I'm still, I'm still constantly balancing that, but you're always a mother still. It's always in the back of your mind, like, oh, where is my child? And has my child eaten? And what are they supposed to be doing right now? And do they have homework? And I think that while fathers do take some of that burden, it's never released on a mother.
I can feel you, Emily. So I'm a mom, and I'm doing my master's nowadays. So I can feel you at the end, after work and being a mom at the same time doing my master's, it's really challenging. So yeah. What about you, Priti?
Okay, so yeah, I think it has affected me, because I think the pace to reach this position has been a little bit slower as compared to if there was somebody, a male, in place of me, because I have always given priority to my children, because I think that's my main responsibility. So when my daughters were born, I moved from full-time to adjunct positions twice when they were born. So until they were like 2 or 3, I stayed as adjunct, and then I moved again to the full-time. So those kind of sacrifices, I would say, but I'm happy about that I did not let the urge to be in a full-time position stop me to take care of my girls, because that's my I think primary responsibility. So yeah, but I enjoyed that. That is also something which I'm really proud of, right? And yeah, so these are all my decisions. I made that decision to be an adjunct. I made a decision to come back full time, and I can even stop now if needed. So I'm happy. Things are in my control, and yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Speaking of mothers, by the way, happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, thank you.
You want to share any thoughts, Ahoud?
I think in my case, I've been in a similar situation where most of women in the Gulf or the Middle East generally would be affected, especially if they decided to continue their studies abroad by themselves, like alone. But if you have your family support, it's more than enough to give you power and confident to do the things the way that you want to do. But still, I'm speaking on behalf of many girls, for example, in the region. These kind of, I would say, cultural restrictions on women still exist, even though there's some modernity or openness. But when it comes to women travel to study abroad by itself, still it's less now than before, especially when lots of Western institutions are open right now in the region where they can get their education as the way they will receive it abroad. But still, it is not the same experience, because living abroad by itself is an experience besides studying. So I would say these kind of cultural restrictions on women education. But in my career path in higher education, to be honest, during my few years, because I'm early scholar, I've been exceeded 4 years right now, just 4 years. I haven't came across any, alhamdulillah, nothing has been came in my way, but hopefully not will come along my journey.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. And of course, we hope that for you too. If we can ask maybe one question back to that, if you allow. You mentioned so far nothing really happened on your way in that sense, but maybe if you want to share, what has been the most challenging part of your career so far? It can be Ahoud, it can be Emily, Priti, whoever wants to share, if you want to share.
And if you want me to answer,
Sure.
I don't know if I have to say that, but it's I think it's the gap, the age gap or the difference between me and most of my colleagues. I think it constitutes a kind of barrier in exchanging knowledge or co-working anything or co-authoring. That's not that they're not supportive or helpful, but it wouldn't be more effective if we have a lesser or fewer smaller gap difference to share similar ideas and work together, because interests are different.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing.
You're welcome.
Priti, Emily, do you also want to share something, or it's fine if you don't want to?
Yeah, who should go first? Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I guess I was thinking about all the times when I think back to when it was very difficult in my career or in my education, are the kinds of transitions, are changing course, or going back for a degree or taking a new job. And I think those transition periods when you're in them are very, very stressful. And when I got this job that I have now in Abu Dhabi, I I had quite a big waiting period of a lot of uncertainty. And I remember a very thoughtful aunt of mine who's a teacher said, you know, you always forget the transitions after you're out of them, but when you're in them, it's very stressful, and they really, you know, you're not sure where your life is going. It feels very uncertain. But afterwards, you look back and you're like, oh yeah, of course that worked out. It was great. But those are the hardest times, and we forget how resilient we are getting through those times. You know, when the next transition comes, you forget what that last one was like.
Thanks so much. Yeah, it's actually true with the transition times. I guess we all agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, there have been some challenges, and I've thought about those challenges, and I always saw those challenges as opportunities to grow and evolve. And I think I've become way more stronger, and my impact on myself, the way I work, and on my family, on my institution, and even the country, and internationally, it has been much more, I would say, significant, because I saw those challenges as opportunities. And one of the challenge which I would like to mention is that sometimes as women you have to prove yourself before the your colleagues start believing that what impact you can bring about in whatever you are doing. So you have to prove yourself.
Thanks for sharing, Priti, or all of you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we touched on challenges, and maybe it's a challenge, maybe it's a big opportunity, but I guess right now, at least that's what we're feeling in the organization here, is that COVID-19 and its ramifications has a big impact. And we would also be interested in what your thoughts are on what COVID-19's impact is currently on higher education in your universities, organizations, and if you can share something about that, maybe. Priti, do you want to start?
Yeah, I can begin. I think there has been huge changes. First of all, I would talk about myself. A lot of reflections done. I think I'm a better Priti after COVID, improved version, focusing on my well-being, focusing on the family, thinking on what I really want to do in life. So that has been, I would say, a benefit of being on the lockdown. It has not been easy. It has been very challenging because the work hours increased. I would say the 9 to 5, that timing, it didn't exist. There were no borders. So we were working, I would say, 24/7, the entire day. And I think everybody has seen that, especially when you have children who are also doing online studies, it has become even more difficult. So again, this is not something which only I have experienced. But yeah, again, the opportunity was that we have learned all the education technology so much quicker. We are now, I think, using so many different platforms to educate. So yeah, I have found a way how to maneuver in this difficult situation. In terms of the institution, we are now a DigiCampus. We are no longer having face-to-face learning in our campus, yes. And I think that's going to stay like that in the near future. So our students have coped up, all the faculty. We are a big institution of more than 1,200 faculty members. Everybody is using digital and education technology to teach. We are very happy with what we have achieved, and a lot of quick professional development workshops were done, and now everybody is comfortable using it. In fact, some faculty say that we want to continue teaching online. We don't want to be on campus because we are saving so many hours on traveling and getting ready. So yeah, that's what my experience is. Yeah.
Thanks so much for sharing. Ahoud, Emily, do you want to add something or?
If you want to go, Emily, I can wait after you.
Sure. Yeah, I think the biggest challenge has been not being in the classroom with my students at the university. And, you know, while there's a lot of benefit to the technology, and I've really loved the kinds of interaction that the students have done online, and there's, you know, tech tools that I'm going to continue to use afterwards, I do notice that our students' language abilities have really decreased. When they do speak to me on Zoom, you know, it's not the kinds of conversations that we used to have when we were always in person, always discussing. And, you know, sometimes I think that your presence in the room as a teacher in a higher education classroom has a really big influence on the students. And if there's like the one big takeaway message that I would want them to have, the kind of, I always drill this into the students, you know, it's maybe not quite getting across as clearly because of the online nature. I think it's really forced me to really think carefully about exactly what I want to teach each week, plan it out super carefully. You know, I record as much as possible so students can go back when they have technical problems, but it's just not the same. It's just not at all the same as being in real life.
Yeah, technology and its improvements. I think it's the positive thing that COVID-19 has brought to all education systems in the world, and I cannot imagine the world or education systems without the technology, even post-COVID-19 era. I thank COVID-19 situation for preparing my students, because the main challenge that I face with my students is getting them into using technology. Although that all these softwares and the technology that we had before in the institutions, but they were not being used efficiently. I had to teach or my students first, like specifying time each course just to prepare them and get them to know their technology tools before I can start my lecture or teaching course. But now they all been prepared, especially by a huge like movement that the institution done to train all staff and students during 3 months or the 2 months before we return back to our online teaching. The challenge that we are not seeing our students, we don't have any classes or face-to-face education. Still, we are conducting the virtual education. It has its positive things, but still besides many negativity, especially regarding evaluation and assessment. Given the huge, the big numbers, large number of students, it's very hard to control that. And you know that they are cheating, but you cannot do anything. Like you do, you do whatever you know. You can just to eliminate that they eliminate that things, but still they are very clever to find a way to do that things. Even if we want to use other kind of tool, assessment tool or evaluation tool, it will be a burden, or like I am punishing myself because of their numbers, reading their assignments through correction. But I've always said it, and anyone asking me about the advantages of COVID-19, I said it's the technology tool and getting everyone familiar with technology, and that would be helpful even for post-COVID-19 era.
Thanks so much for sharing. I think we have one last question.
Yeah. So yeah, we spoke about the challenges, your journeys, and your career path. Do you have any advice for the younger girls around the world if they want to like build a career in the education sector?
Advice for, you mean after COVID-19?
No, advice for the young girls in general who are interested in joining the like or building a career in the education sector.
Don't let anyone to stop you from realizing your dream. This is what I can say, because they will have lots of challenges and people just putting them down, putting them, don't do it, or it's not worth it. But if you like this thing and this is something that you love and passionate about, just go ahead and do it. And it will, but it's something that you have to be prepared for, because working in academia and higher education specifically, it's endless work. It's very hard to stop working. It's very hard to have a real vacation or a holiday, because your vacation will involve lots of research, I'm sure. This is the academia, like a vacation in our perspective. So if you really think that this is the thing that you want to do, just do it.
Like follow your dreams, huh? Thank you, Ahoud. Emily or Priti, any advice?
I would say that being in higher education, I think, is a very rewarding career. It's the environment in which you spend those 7, 8, 9 hours. You are dealing with people who are, I would say, highly educated. The way the discussions which happen among the colleagues, that's what I really enjoy. It makes you think, it makes you sometimes change your perspective. And I think you can make a lot of impact in the society. Not even in the society, at least my children see how I'm working, how I'm dealing with, I would say, sometimes stress, work-life balance. At least I can be a role model for my children, and I think that is a big influence.
Thank you, Priti.
Yeah, I think my only advice is to kind of go along with those two ideas, that, you know, if you're trying to get that work-life balance and you're noticing how much work is involved, it really has to be something that you really love to do. And so I would say that, you know, as you're going throughout, I think all three of us have kind of diverse backgrounds that, again, it's not this really straight path, because you have to follow what you're really interested in, and then the job is what you want. I think, you know, on the negative side of that, if people are saying, I'm going to get the degree to show that I am this quality of person or whatever, I'm going to do this research so I have this status, I think then the work won't feel like it's worth it, or it'll be so much that it burns you out constantly. But if you're doing something that's really interesting to you, you know, we put up with the large amount of work or the teaching load on top of research because we really care about the things that we're teaching. So I think follow your interest and see where that leads you. And wherever that leads you, it will be a good place.
Thank you so much. I would say we would open it up for Q&A questions for our audience. We already have a few questions dropped in there already, but just some encouragement, please feel free to all attendees to post their questions there. And I think
even if the audience have any questions in Arabic, feel free to drop them in Arabic and we can answer in Arabic or in English. It's fine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm just looking at Haifa's question here, which might be related to basically the advice that you just gave, but more general, which is, what is your advice about navigating job opportunities in higher education in the region? What are the most important skills to sell to recruiting managers? If any one of you has advice on that. Priti is already unmuted. Do you want to start?
I would say that sometimes the opportunity may not be a full-time position, but if you really like to teach, start with adjunct positions in wherever the opportunity comes from, and then build up your profile step by step. It really depends on where you start from, right? So if you are a beginner, I would suggest that's the way forward. But you are already an accomplished a faculty member, then definitely it would be through networking with faculty member in universities, or initiating a conversation during conferences, or going to the university websites and look for opportunities there and apply online. So yeah.
I completely agree with you, Dr. Priti. It's any path in higher education is involved networking highly.
Yes. Yeah.
Networking is very important task tool to be used if you are looking for a job in higher education generally.
Yeah.
Sorry, Max. Sorry, Marvin. Sorry, I called
It's
you.
fine. I was just looking at Emily, who was, I think, about to unmute her. So it's fine now, who knows?
No, I guess I was going to share a little tidbit that the way that I got the job that I currently have is, I think, by meeting people at this exact conference the last time that it was held in person. So I think, yeah, the networking aspect is huge. And I think when you are in person, yeah, there we go. Kay Gallagher was my first boss here at this job, and she and I met, however, 3 years ago or whatever at this conference. So I think, yeah, I think networking is huge. And as a person who's not particularly good at networking, I'm quite shy and not good at like really jumping out and telling everybody about myself. If you can kind of find the people that are interested in the same things that you are and whose work you find interesting and making sure that you meet them, they'll often introduce you to other people that might have a job for you as well.
I mean, like we're always happy to hear that, we create opportunities. And it worked for you, which is great. Congratulations. Emily, you just answered, maybe we address this to you directly. Shahad asked to you specifically, do you have any tips on balancing your time as a full-time educator, mother, and researcher? And Ahoud, Priti, chime in whenever you want to.
Oh, I don't know if I have any tips. I think it gets easier as your children get older. And I'm kind of lucky that I just have the one child. And so I think it was very difficult when he was young. And now that he's, pushing 11 here, it's a lot easier because your child is more independent. And also that, I'm here without the support of my extended family, which is very hard for expats in the country. And so if you're an expat and you don't have that extended family to lean on, I think that is tough. Like you really are relying on the school and on other families that you know to help you with childcare. I don't know if I have any great tips though. Maybe someone else does.
I think that's a very hard question. How do you balance? Because I have two daughters. One is 17 and the other one is 8, and I'm still struggling. So, but I tell both of them in advance what my week looks like, if I'm coming late or if I have to go early. And they have been supportive, but yes, sometimes they complain. And I mean, that's a genuine complaint, I think. But I sometimes try to, I would say, cover it up by making a very tasty dish or taking them out for hiking or going to the beach. But they understand that what mom is doing is important, and they see that how passionately I work. So even though they miss the time spent with me, but I think they're still learning. Yeah.
Thanks so much for sharing. Ahoud, were you reaching for the unmute button? Or yeah.
Want me to? I would. I could reflect that time management is very important in any case. If you're a single or if you are a mother, if you secured few hours per day or per week, you will be productive in a way. It varies based on your circumstances and how many child you have, the family support and others. But still, if you could manage your time in a way that securing specific hours, just focusing on your work, like if it's a research work, yes, but work as a job, you will be forced to do that, obviously. But teaching task is completely different things, and it's something that you have to work by force, like this is your job, but it's very hard to specify specific time for your research. This is the challenge that we are facing in most academics. I'm sure most faculty members, they need time for their research, mainly because of the teaching load that they have.
Thanks so much for adding that. And there's one question by Aisha in the chat or in the Q&A box, actually.
Yes, about the family.
Exactly, exactly. And maybe it can also be like family and friends, but is asking, how do you deal with guilt of being away from family and let's say and friends and kids for so long? I guess it also can be conferences, doing research, being in your office, writing. How do you balance that?
I'll jump in on that one just because I think this is I have a very funny, someone kind of asked me that once as I went to a conference and I stayed at an Airbnb where I was staying in someone's house and the house owner was there and it was quite lovely. And it was a woman who was a single mother. And she looked at me and she said, "Oh, wow, you have a son and you left your son behind with your husband. Is that all right?" And then she said, wait, let me stop myself. If it was a man, I would never ask him that question. I would just move on. I'm a single mother. I know that everything's fine. Your children are going to grow up great. You know, it's okay for them to be with just one parent at some times. And I think that that's actually really important is, yeah, I mean, just because you're gone for a weekend doesn't make you a terrible mother, right? Just because you go and you know, go after those opportunities doesn't mean that you're dropping the ball somewhere else. There is a balance and it's fine, you know, especially as your children get, you know, past babyhood, being away from them a little bit is absolutely fine and probably better for them. They grow up very independent and thoughtful and they see how you balance the work and the rest of your life.
I think, Margaret, we could know more on that topic from the person who asked the question, Dr. Aisha Al-Harthi. I'm sure that she has been in a similar situation and we can use her experience.
True, yeah. Priti, do you want to add something or?
Yeah, it's challenging to be away, but as I told you, my daughters have grown up, so they're quite independent. They have a schedule, what they have to do when they have to go out for play or they have to do studies. But they know that I'll be back in the evening. We will have whatever we have planned, and then throughout the day I check. So I have my timings. I have phone calls with them. I check with them. Are they home? Sometimes I have Zoom meetings from my office with them just to support them and see what they are doing, whether they need something. So yeah, it's challenging, but as the saying goes, where there is a will, there is a way. That's what I believe in. Everything is adjusted, I think, if you want to do.
Very encouraging. Thanks for sharing that. There's one question in the Q&A box, that asks about mental health, actually. I mean, we heard about long working hours and sort of blurry lines between maybe professional and private and working a lot. So do you have any, I mean, do you want to share your experience on that, or do you have any tips for how does one take care of one's mental health amidst all this?
Yeah, so maybe I can begin since I am unmute. So yeah, it is very, very stressful, I would say, being in this administrative position, long working hours and nonstop work, even on the weekends. So my tip is that I don't touch my laptop on Fridays at all. Saturday is when I prepare for the week. And that can be like a couple of hours I spend so that I can organize my week. Later half is towards arranging the meals, at least 3-4 meals, sitting with the girls, talking to them and finding out if they have anything to discuss. And yoga really helps. Yes, so that really makes me calm, and I try to do yoga 3 or 4 times in a week. So that's my mantra for taking care of my well-being.
I do agree with Dr. Priti on working out in any specific exercise that you're happy doing, yoga or Pilates or something that relaxes you. And if you kept this on a schedule, like your lectures, and you're not canceling because of your work, it would be really helpful because it's something that makes you feel better after you're doing it, something other than teaching or research or anything else. And also I would recommend to have something that you are passionate about to do, like for example, cooking or anything. If you are happy with it, something will release your tension in a way. But if you, for example, like Dr. Priti, decided not to open your laptop, it's very hard, especially these days, because everything is based or rely on your laptop, even if it's not your work. Anything, especially now in the COVID-19 era, everything is electronic. If you purchase or order anything, you have to open your laptop. If it's not your laptop, it will be your iPhone or tablet. Or I think it's very hard to take yourself away from technology and all its devices. But as you mentioned, workout sessions, and you have to keep a schedule, fix the schedule on that. It will help a lot in releasing your tension and saving your mental health. It's just refreshing your mind to go back to your work fresh. And whenever you are tired and you feel tired, you have to stop, because you will not work effectively. Just to start shifting your focus and do something else.
Yeah, I think that last bit is really great advice that I need to tell my students that all the time. Like, don't work when you're tired, because you get into that cycle of seeing that you produce bad work and that you need to put more time in, but you get more and more tired. And, on the days that you feel like you do that, it's you just have to put it away and say, oh, it'll be better another day. Yeah.
I mean, that is actually really good. Advice, I would say. It's like, just stop for one moment also, which is very important. We have one question actually is on the Q&A.
Technology.
Exactly. One is about technology, and one is from Haifa about maybe change in higher education in general, in the higher education profession. So maybe we can combine these and just ask, maybe technology is part of overall change, but how do you deal with change in your profession? You want to start? I think you're unmuted already. It's fine.
No, I need to if you could repeat the question so I can get it exactly.
Oh, sorry. I just said that we have one question on technology, on change and technology, and someone else is asking about change in general in higher education professions, which could be lecturing, researching. So people are interested in how you're coping with change in your jobs.
Yeah, I think in my case, I'm trying to let other coping or changing and like pulling them to the knowledge transformation or keeping up with that change, because staying like at the traditional teaching and that way it's not going to be effective in this era of education. We need to move on. We need to work with technology more. We need to be more familiar in how to use technological tools to use them in our teaching and higher education generally, not only teaching, in all other ways, because technology has been providing us with amazing tools to save us time. So if we know how to work them perfectly or efficiently, it will end up like most of our research load work, it can be done by ourselves by technology. For example, if I'm talking about referencing, if I'm talking about coding or anything else, like these kind of things that needed labor before to held on do that work. Now it's very easy done like this with one click on a button and using technology. But you have to get familiar with that technology to use it efficiently.
Thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Just waiting for either Emily or Priti, because it always looks like you're unmuting already, and then it's like, sorry.
I think the mantra in higher education is change is the only thing which is constant. So there's so much of changes happening in higher education. Um, and I have the privilege to discuss these changes with my father on weekends, and I always ask him and check with him how the situation was in 60s and 70s and 80s. So I always have something to compare with. And but yeah, the changes definitely are there, and we have no option but to cope with the changes. So because I am also in the administration, there is a shift in higher education towards documentation, administrative responsibilities more than the actual, I would say, teaching. So also because of the the accreditations, probably I would say the national accreditations, international accreditations, which requires a lot of documentation. The I talk to a lot of faculty members as well, and they say that's what they are struggling with, to cope up with actually supporting the students in their education and to cope up with the administrative side of being a faculty member. So it's hard, it's very challenging. Yeah.
I think they did a great job answering that. I don't know if I have anything to add. I think the changes in technology are always going to be there, and it is sort of the like, oh, now you're the age that TikTok seems like it's really hard. Well, the TikTok generation is going to look, and there's going to be the next app that they think is really hard that they don't understand, and it just like goes through the generations as to what app you use and what technology you're comfortable and what systems you used, and it'll always change, and it'll always be a different thing than what you came in with.
Oh, true. I guess, yeah. I mean, change is constant
True.
these days. Yes. Thanks for all your answers. I think we have time for one more question, maybe. And Emily, you mentioned Key Gallagher before. She actually posted a question in the Q&A box asking, or actually thanking you all for sharing your insights and experiences. But also, we talked about sort of how being a woman has affected your career path. She asked more specifically, have any of the panel members ever felt that their gender was an obstacle as an academic in higher education?
Can I answer that one first, since
Please,
Kay
yes.
is my lovely colleague? I have to start with the positive first, though, is actually, the reason that I took this job and that I immediately knew it was the right thing for me is because my 3 supervisors were 3 of the most amazing women that I had ever met. And having 3 female bosses, Kay being one of them, has been the highlight of my career in my lifetime. I mean, it's just been absolutely incredible to work for such amazing women. And I feel like the obstacle that I've encountered in the past is not having enough female leaders, not having enough women in charge who know the struggles of being a mother, or who know that that career path is a little bit different. So that when you do have those people as your bosses, it's like the skies have cleared, and the way makes sense.
Can you please repeat the question for me?
Yes, of course. Happy to. Someone was asking, have any of the panel members ever felt that their gender was an obstacle as an academic in higher education?
No, I don't think so. In fact, I have worked with excellent mentors and peers who are women, and they have always been very, very supportive. I would especially like to say my mentor in PhD in the university. She was supposed to join me today. I think she's not here, but yeah, very, very supportive. And no, that it's not like that. Yeah.
I think it was an era where many experienced that challenges, but now I think in higher education, the percentage of female faculty are increased comparing to previous era. And still, it depends like I would never say it's. I would not rely this on gender, because there are differences. Even like you will find female with very productive and collaborative faculty members who are supportive and good enough, and you can find as well a male faculty member. It's something personal. I think I would not rely it to gender. Even like Emily mentioned or referred, that there will be more understanding in a way for a women's situation, but there are some female faculty who would consider that as they know what like your secrets in a way, so they will not use it as like a good, a positive way of communication between you and them. So I would never rely that on a gender basis, like a female or a male faculty member. It's completely personal.
And can I add a point here? Because all the women I have worked with, they have been so supportive and they have understood the phase of life, whichever I was in. I try to do the same with the faculty who work with me. I try to understand in which stage they are, and I have sometimes gone extra mile to support them, whatever I can. And I think it's my turn to now return back and help all the faculty members and colleagues whenever they need.
Thank you so much. That was very inspiring, and I think right now we have to, we want to thank all of you for your time. After a long conference day, I mean, to our attendees who are not attending the GCS conference, you see it in the back of each of our panelists. It's currently the GCS conference. So whoever wants to join, maybe tomorrow, it's like, thanks Ahoud for moving to the other side. Whoever wants to join, maybe tomorrow, maybe on Tuesday, even when the conference is still ongoing, please do, you can still register. But for now, thank you so much to our panelists, Ahoud, Priti, Emily, for taking the time after the long conference day and to speak to all of us, to share your experience. It is very, very, very much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. And thank you for sharing your inspiring journeys and experiences.
Yeah. And also, in fact, we just want to mention a few things. I mean, Priti, you highlighted that maybe a friend of you wanted to join, but you're not sure if he or she could join. We're actually going to make a recording of this available next week, is my understanding?
By next week on our YouTube channel. So stay tuned.
Exactly. So everyone wants to rewatch it. If you want to share it, feel free, please do that. And of course, everybody, please feel encouraged to follow us on our social media channels, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter,
Facebook.
And please follow us, and then you can also, we will share our news and so those recordings with everyone. And I think the last thing we want to mention is that whenever you end this webinar and you leave it, you will receive a link to a survey, and please complete that survey. Tell us about your experience. But for now, thank you all very much again. Thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you.
And have a
great
evening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. And it has been a pleasure talking to Dr. Ahoud, Dr. Emily, and Aisha and Max, if I can say, with both of you. Yeah, very interesting conversation. And you made us think about our journey and all the little steps we took in our careers to reach this, I would say, the stage. So thank you so much.
Thank you. But thanks for the warm words. All right. Goodbye.
All right. See ya.
Bye.
Thank you.